1, 2, 3, 4.
This is Sandy Gennaro, world-class rock and roll drummer who has recorded and toured with renowned artists Cyndi Lauper, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Bo Diddley, Johnny Winter, Pat Travers, The Monkees, Joe Lynn Turner, Michael Bolton, Benny Mardones, Kraft, The Mamas and Papas, and John Paris. Sandy has recorded several top 10 singles and has performed for over 1 billion fans, spanning his over 50-year career. He has also made numerous TV appearances, including The Tonight Show, the Grammy Awards, the American Music Awards, the MTV New Year's Ball, and The Late Show with David Letterman. Born and raised in New York City, Sandy now resides in Nashville, Tennessee, where he has reinvented himself as one of the top motivational speakers and keynote presenters in the country. The time Sandy spent teaching in the classroom at the Drummers Collective in New York is what opened his eyes to the notion that, throughout his career, there were a few vital ingredients that enabled him to overcome and thrive as a performer and in his personal life. Using this knowledge and experience, he formulated the basis of his keynote presentation about beating the odds. Sandy soon became known as the rock and roll thought leader after he began sharing his keynote presentations with companies, organizations, and schools across the country, such as FedEx, Belmont University, Pacific Hotel Management, LLC, Sam Ash Corporation, the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, the Collective New York City, the School of Rock, and many, many others. Within his presentations, Sandy delivers an incredible message from his BEATS acronym of belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service, all tied into his life lessons as a very successful musician. I would have to say, as a huge fan of his drumming and the bands he's worked with, that making the time to speak with me for my channel, he is walking his talk. Let's check in with him. How are you?
I'm good, Burke. Thank you very much for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm going to just record, and anything you don't want in there, I'll edit out.
Okay.
Later.
Good.
Do you prefer Sandy or Mr. Gennaro? Or
Sandy is just fine amongst drummers. Are you kidding me?
Okay, sure. This is a treat. I really appreciate your time, and I really like what you're doing these days. It really strikes, I really connect with it. I mean, especially you just being here, it's like you're already walking the talk, you know what I'm saying? Because I started this channel since my accident to reach out to my drum heroes, and most of them, I'd say, they joined, and I was like, wow, you know, and it's given me a lot of positive energy. But there were some who weren't even close to what you've accomplished in your career, who are just, you know, they're too busy right now or whatever. And that's fine. I'm not bitter about it, but just you know, connecting is like, wow, it's super inspiring.
I appreciate that, Burke.
I've done a little bit of research, and I saw that clip of you interviewing Peter Criss. So that's kind of like my parallel is I grew up teaching myself the drums in the 80s and seeing you play, and Martin Chambers and Dave Barbarossa from Bow Wow Wow and these new wave guys, although you weren't just new wave, but you were kind of swirled in there. That's the parallel. Like me talking to you is you interviewing Peter Criss. So that's the weight of it for me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Burke. I appreciate that. And you know what? I just look at myself just like a regular guy. I never wore the rock star hat. I actually wore the anti-rock star hat, where I talk to everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody that reaches out to me, if I get a sense and a good vibe that they're sincere, mm-hmm. I always try to accommodate. And I don't know if you've seen any of the videos that are on the signature in my email, but have you looked at those at all?
Yeah, a few of them, yeah.
Okay, so you know the gist of what I'm about as a person, and that carries over to me being a player and a rock star associated with famous artists, as you are well aware. So That's just basically my MO. It's like I treat the janitor the same way I treat the CEO. I treat my roadie the same way I treat the person whose name is on the marquee. Simple as that.
I love your bit about that, there's a little flame inside of everybody, and you just take the time to inspire that flame, because that's true. You never know what kind of power you have, coming off a stage or having someone listen to your record or being in a video or something like that. You never know what that can sprout. Like you said, it's a tree, and it can connect people, and it can always come back around to help you in some positive way. It's energy that's spread out through people, and
Right.
most of the time, people don't recognize that there's a flame in everyone, and they're on their track and they're doing their job, but it's very unique. That's why I really connected to what you're doing. The beats theme
Right.
you have, and I learned that long ago when I think I took one lesson in a community college before I like really took it seriously, and it was a very classical conductor, and he wrote up on the chalkboard on day one. He put talent and gear, practice, clothes, venues. And at the very end, he put people, and he said, put these in order, are the most important thing to be successful in a music career. And again, this was like in the very late 80s, and everyone's going for everything else. And he scratched them out, and he said, people, get to know people, get in the rooms. Like you say, get in the rooms, play with people, network. Because it's not just going door to door and saying, hey, look what a good drummer I am, and giving the business card. It's about, once you're in a room and you make an impression and you have a good attitude, that maybe you didn't necessarily get that job, but other people will talk. I've been on high profile auditions before, and I've got some heartbreaking auditions with very big bands,
Right.
I could have bought my mom a house, and your life changes, but moving on to other bands, you made an impression, and you get a call for another audition, or they're very apologetic, and you can call them on. They never hesitate to call me on other favors. I reached out to a band that I didn't get, but I called on a favor because I was in an Australia festival, and I was like, I don't have a drum tech for this Australia festival. He's like, you can use ours. This gigantic band. You go ahead, and he'll be there. He'll help you out. I remember you. You did. You're a good dude and all that. So you never know how it can help you.
If we had like hours upon hours and a couple of six packs,
Yeah.
I could, Burke, every gig that I've gotten in my life, financially rewarding gigs, artistically rewarding gigs, personal relationships, every good thing that has come to me in my life has been a direct or indirect result of me going out of my way and treating somebody like a human being. Every single one. How I got the Monkees gig, how I got Cyndi Lauper's gig. I was with Travers in the early 80s. I reached out. I was in the dressing room and in a real big hurry at Pat, and everybody was on the bus already. I'm always the last one out of the dressing room, as you probably are, sweating and showering and whatever. It was a big arena in Connecticut. On my way out, there was a guy at the doorway with a pen and a camera. And I said, man, I'm so much in a hurry. And this guy is following me around the room with his eyes. And I'm going, well, the guy ain't here to see Pat because he's already on the bus. He wants to see me. He's got the pen. He's looking at me wide-eyed. So instead of putting the rock star hat on and blowing him off, or the polite rock star and saying, hey, man, I don't have time for you, sorry, and walking off, I put the Sandy hat on, and the Sandy hat dictates my behavior. And I said to him, listen, man, I'm in a big hurry, but what can I do for you? I signed his autograph, took his picture, and then he says to me, I'm a bass player. Could you help me get a gig in New York City? I said, I can't help you get a gig unless I hear you play. So here's my card, my home number, my home address. Send me a cassette of your playing. This is 1981. Send me a cassette of your playing, and I'll see what I can do. He did. I walked away. He hugged me so tight. He goes, I can't believe you're giving me your home number, blah, blah, blah. I said, don't worry about it, Dave. I'm in a hurry. Go ahead and send me the cassette, and we'll see what happens. So 3 weeks later, I get the cassette in the mail. Nothing really happens. I sent it to a couple of connections in New York. 3 years later, he called me. He says, I'm managing this girl now. She's going to be the biggest thing in 1984. the biggest thing. I go, Dave, I can't join your band. I'm not going to join a baby band after coming off an arena tour. Sorry. And everybody, with all due respect, everybody's next project is going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
No, you don't understand, Sandy. You got to come and meet this woman. Long story short, I went down to this record plant and met Cyndi Lauper, and she, after hearing some of the songs that they were working on for the first album, I decided to join her band. It was at that point, it was the biggest tour I ever did, around the world a couple of times. I saw the gig grow from playing bars with 5 people in it, traveling in a Winnebago with band, crew, and the gear in a trailer, to 5 million records, multi-nights in arenas 5-6 months later. Mm-hmm. So not only did I see the rock and roll machinery from actually birth of an unknown to multi-platinum, worldwide, globally known artists, but I met my wife on that tour, and we're still together 35 years later. So, again, sometimes I stay awake at night going, man, what if I would have blew Dave off in the doorway that one night in Connecticut? You know what I mean? It's like that. And I do a musical director a favor. He lost his drummer for a gig with the Tokens, Lion Sleeps Tonight. I did him a favor, bailed him out. No money, carry your own drums. It's a sound check is at 3, the gig ain't till 9, and it's an oldies gig, whatever. But the guy reached out to me. He goes, man, you got to help me out. You got to bail me out. I didn't know this guy from Adam at this point. Mm-hmm. So I did the gig. I helped him out. I did the gig. About 3 or 4 months later, he gets the MD gig with the Monkees, and he asks me to do it. He goes, you bailed me out. I want you to play drums on this tour. And that one tour ended up to be several Monkee reunion tours that I was involved with, Mickey Dolenz solo gigs, Davy Jones solo gigs, and rehearsing for that Monkees tour was at the Drummers Collective in New York. The owner heard me practice the Monkee stuff. He said, would you be interested in teaching here? And I said, sure, after I get off the road, I'll look you up. And he goes, yeah, I'll set you up with some students because you sound great. So that started my teaching career at the Drummers Collective, which lasted 27 years. And instructional videos were done for DCI. I wrote books for Drummers Collective that were published. So, and that was rehearsing for the Monkee tour that I got as a result of helping this guy out on an oldies gig like months earlier.
Yeah, and every one of those gigs you get, it's going to multiply. There's going to be a new set of people who see you with new gig opportunities, and it's just going to keep overlapping.
It's the dominoes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And I'll shut up. But if I told you how I got my very first gig, it's like at Carmine Appice and whatever. But you're right. It's like the domino theory. It's like if you're in the right headspace, and you have the right perception of things. And like you said, it goes way beyond chops. I know a lot of drummers. I know drummers that come to me as students and I always ask them to play before I say a word to them. And I go, what am I going to teach this guy? He can play circles around me, but he wants some some help with the psychological approach with the music business or whatever it may be, something besides the actual drumming. So it goes way beyond what you could do on the drum set. Your success as a musician, and actually in any walk of life, it goes way beyond the talent needed to do the job. It's what's here that really carries you forward.
On the play with everyone and the favors theme, how would you balance, let's say there's no pandemic and there's still kind of a music industry going on. How would you balance the play with everyone you can, meet people, favors versus, man, I've been driving this drum kit to this gig for a favor for so long, and I think that my talent level might be more accepted, or I might make a little more money over here. I just can't do it anymore. Like your ego gets involved. How would you balance that?
Well, you know what? That's a really good question. Unless there is a paying gig that on the calendar, let's say for September 2nd. Hey, Sandy, you doing anything September 2nd? I have a charity gig and help raise money, whatever, a free gig. If I have a paying gig on that date, well, obviously, sorry, I'm booked that night. I really can't do it. But if I'm not doing anything, I am not, even after 53 years in the business, Burke, I am not yet in the position or even want to turn anybody down. Um, if I'm available and I can help somebody out with my playing or an appearance or a Zoom or a charity fundraiser or send me a signed drumhead that we can do at a silent auction or whatever, I always accommodate. Now, when you say, how do you balance it? Well, of course, paying gigs take the precedent. If I'm not going to cancel or sub out a paying gig to do a free one, but if I'm available, and especially if I'm there to help somebody out, if it's for a charitable cause, or I for that tokens gig, I did get paid. I got a minimal amount. It barely covered my gas and expenses because it was 2 hours away. But I always accommodate. If I can, I will. And because you'll never get to the point, well, I've done enough free networking or free jam situations. You go and jam and meet new, before the pandemic, I'm sure in Seattle area, they had these, you have jams and, open mic nights or whatever you want to call it.
That's how I got, there's a band out here. It's a Tower of Power funk cover band called Dr. Funk. And the main drummer is Ben Smith of Heart. And he invited me to jam at this little psychedelic club called the Sea Monster. He just invited me to play along with the band that he usually jams with. And just by him seeing me play, then I became his sub every time he couldn't do that gig.
There you go.
And just started calling me, and it's very respectful. I'm never going to cross over any kind of contacts or anything like that. It's just when they call me, I'm in, already know the 2-hour set.
Right.
And I've been playing with them for 3 years now.
That's awesome. And by the way, Ben, I met him on I think, is that the same? That's not the same guy that plays with Paul Rogers, is it?
Possibly. God, he plays with everyone. He also plays with this guy Leroy Bell, who wrote a couple songs for Elton John in this little 3-piece R&B thing. He gets around. Ben.
Yeah. Yeah. I have good memories of Heart because when I was with the Travers Band in the early '80s, when Heart was with Michael and the brothers, and there was relationships going on, all that soap opera stuff. Yeah. Travers opened for Heart for maybe 5 or 6 gigs, and they were great. We ended up partying with Ann and Nancy, and it was very cool. And I ended up doing a Carmine Appice drum battle tour. And Michael DeRosio was part of that. And I got to know Michael very, very well. And I'm sure he's doing well with his apple orchards there in Washington State.
Yeah. And he's still playing those Heart songs in another Heart tribute thing with Fossen, the bass player. I mean, and that's how I got to be playing with Roger through word of mouth, playing with another bass guitar player who invited me into Roger's new band, playing all the Heart stuff. And Michael's still managing, by the way. And then the guy who invited me into that band ended up quitting the first week. So then I brought in, from Dr. Funk, I brought in this guy, Jim Cliff, who played with Richard Marx all those years with the hits and stuff.
Right.
He's out in this area. So I brought in the bass player. Then we're getting ready to tour for this. Roger's like, well, I wrote most of the stuff I want. There's 20 Heart cover bands out here. I might as well do my own thing.
All right.
Before, right after the first show of the tour, that's when I got launched from my car, and things definitely changed. So yeah, I'm about 75% back playing.
Well, first of all, I have to personally congratulate you on the, not on the accident, but on the mental fortitude you had to come back. Because, when you're laying in the bed 2 days after the accident, it seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, nope. Oh man, am I Fucked?
Yeah.
But you had the fortitude and the mental strength to go, and I'm going to get past this. And there you are sitting there, and you're 75%. Are you playing back? Are you back? I mean, without the pandemic aside, are you playing now, even in your own studio behind you?
I was in the hospital for 30 days, and I played a show a week after I got out of the hospital, which was a mistake. But and it was with that Tower of Power band.
Wow.
And I come from a very slamming, alternative rock, screamy, aggressive, kind of thing. So playing with that band was very good for me for as far as listening dynamics, because all of them were A-list horn players. Yeah, so I had a drum kit delivered to the hospital, what the doctors were not happy about, just so I could stare at it, just a Simmons kit. And it sat there in the corner for weeks. And I wasn't allowed to touch it until I got down to the physical therapy floor. And that's when I just sat there and just kind of, I had a catheter hanging out, and I'm banging on trash cans and all this stuff. So that kind of early positive brain, I'm going to go get this, is, nothing, there's nothing to see. There was no accident,
Right.
back on the horse, but it was a mistake. I started playing too early. But last year, before the pandemic or whatever, it was just all about distraction. I started playing a bunch of shows, and I wasn't thinking about my physical being at all. Now this year, since everything's so slow, I'm obsessed with getting healthy. I'm obsessed with building up the nerves. There's a lot of nerve damage, and so it's C6, so the hands and feet are always cold. But just like pushing through and practicing every day and trying to get back to where I was, or where my ego thought I was,
Right.
because, you reach a certain spot, and every drummer has their go-to tricks. Maybe you can't do all the Neil Peart stuff. Maybe you can't do all the Bozzio stuff, all the Bonham stuff, but you have your own special tricks you go to, maybe to impress in an audition or a show or something like that. And all the foundational stuff is there. I'm trying to get back to those tricks, all the quick trigger stuff.
Right. Well, you just, is that C6? Is that nerve damage? Is that, could it come back?
Spine injuries are the hardest. And nerve damage from those kind of things they're still doing research on it. So
Right.
I'm doing research every day on, I'm taking all the proper supplements. I hook myself up to electricity stuff, and I play electricity pads and hot and cold, and I'm constantly moving. I swim.
Good.
So, C6, it's like hands, feet, and then I landed in the mountain really awkwardly. So there's stuff with my hips. And the thing is, I used to run like 10 miles a day. I would even run before and after shows to calm down. So like maybe most people would be in the shower or like kicking back, drinking beers, but even touring with Duff, in overseas or whatever, it'd be like, where's Burke? It was always a where's Burke thing. Cause I'm always out, trying to figure out, never been to this German town before. I'm just going to jog.
Right.
It calms me down. It was good. It was good mental space for me, but it makes my other band members nervous. Like, where is this guy always disappearing to?
I watched, right before we went on, there was you and Duff, Loaded,
Mm-hmm.
a huge outdoor show. But it didn't. There was crowd in the seats, but there was no crowd on the floor of the stadium.
That was halftime at the Seahawks show.
Oh, okay.
That was actually my audition.
Was it?
50,000 people.
Yeah, it was a halftime feel of the song. It was kind of a long intro.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. I like Duff and I. He probably will remember my name, but I had a endorsement in the '90s with Ray-Bans. So there was a Teddy Andriatis, keyboard player. Was the offstage keyboard player with Guns, and he introduced me to Axl and whatever. So I brought a shitload of Ray-Bans to Madison Square Garden when they played, and gave them out, whatever. And
Nice.
And Matt Sorum was the drummer at that time, and there's a interesting story between Matt and the drummer. I'm not a big fan. The drummer of Metallica, Lars.
Yeah, Lars.
But anyway, I won't go into that story.
Yeah.
But as a result, I met Duff and whatever, gave him some glasses or whatever, and then years later, I ran into him at a NAMM show, and he was very nice, very cordial. He didn't have the rock star hat on either. He was totally cool. Sandy, how you doing? Let's take a picture. It was very, very cool.
Have you seen his movie about his recovery?
I have not.
It's called It's So Easy and Other Lies. It was on Netflix for a long time. Yeah, it's just about him, his sobriety and raising his kids, and a lot of Guns N' Roses stories in there. And we play. There's this full string section with Loaded, and it's really well lit. And so the band is in it too. So it's kind of stories and animation and Guns N' Roses clips, and then we play really stripped down versions of Guns N' Roses songs. And I use brushes and
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool if you want to check
That's
that
awesome.
out.
Are you so pre-pandemic? You're still with him? Is that your main gig?
Yeah, that's the main one. There's a couple other. Vendetta Red is another one. It's a little more aggressive. A bunch of Seattle stuff. Like you said, anytime I can get involved with something, I do love to play. I have that addiction.
Right.
I love being in a room, and you can't. There's no other energy. I mean, besides jogging, that runner's high. It's very spiritual for me to be on the kit, and that's why I'm trying to get back to that spot.
Right. Right.
Um,
Well, you can always every time I sit down at the kit, I go back to when I'm 14. And when you're on the road, you have this feeling, oh, how am I going to get up for this gig? And you wake up from your nap, okay, time to sound check. Oh, you drudge, or you take a shower, you try a long drive, you got an overnighter last night, we have another one tonight, blah blah blah. But when I start getting changed in the dressing room, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes before show, I go and peek behind the curtain or see the audience there. And I think back to when I'm 14. I'm going, Sandy, when you were 14, when you saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you used to have that view from Ringo's drum set. That view from Ringo's drum set, looking at the three guys from behind and the audience beyond them. That was the vision I had for years and years and years. And
yeah,
now you're getting paid to do it. So wake the F up.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have a little conversation with myself, like, what are you whining about? You know how many people would kill to be in your shoes right now, ready to go on in front of 15,000, 20,000 people and clap for you and clap along with your drum solo and all that shit?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? So
That's funny, the connection with when you're 14. It's like when you play with someone like Duff, I mean, no one knows who the drummer is. Like, it's not Guns N' Roses, but everyone, focuses on
Right.
Duff. So when we're like playing a stadium in South America, and we're playing Guns N' Roses songs, or opening up for Motorhead, I always love to go out into the crowd before the show even started and just mill around and talk to people and like look at my kit from afar and look at the
Right.
It's like, I'm just a regular. Hey,
Right.
the concert's about to start. Are you excited for the concert? And
Right.
before, and then I'd run backstage.
I have this. I do some motivational speaking now, Burke, and in addition to playing. And one of the stories I tell, and I think this is in my Vimeo page, and it might even be on my website, that before the show or between sound check and the show, I would go out to and walk around the venue. This is even before people are in the venue. Go and walk around and see, and I go, hey, how you doing? To the person selling beer or whatever. They're getting their inventory ready for the show that night. And oh no, sir, you shouldn't be in the venue right now. I go, what are you talking about? I'm the drummer I'm the drummer in the headline act. Oh,
Yeah,
you mean you come out and say hello to us common people? Of course I do. I'm no different than you. And it goes back to the flame.
Yeah.
You and I right now can go like this and cut, and you know what? We bleed the same color. It's a cliche, but it's true. Everybody on this planet, if we're a human being, we bleed red. And that little spark inside of us, which makes us different than a dog, that little flame is our soul. And not to get too spiritual or big picture about it, but we all are here. We all are given some gift or another to advance the human population, to make people fortunate for crossing your path. And eventually, the universe smiles on that. The higher power, whatever you want to call him or her, smiles upon that. And in turn, they put opportunities in front of you that you have to be wide-eyed to watch for. But the opportunities is like the guy in the doorway. Boom, bang. What good came of that? A tremendous amount of good came of that. So it's like when you exhibit the effort of advancing other people and making people fortunate for cross your path, the universe smiles upon that. And in turn, it's an automatic action and reaction. If you act in a positive way, the universe will react in a positive way and give and put things or people or circumstances in or thoughts in your head in order to advance you to the next level, because the universe wants to use you, Burke, as inspiration for others. The universe wants to use me because I'm lucky and was stepped in a big pile of lucky shit one day and was associated with famous artists. Now people reach out to me because I'm associated with this one or that one or this one or that one. And I accommodate because I look at that as a gift that I've been given, and I want to use the gift to advance other people because, and again, I feel like I know you and I can go here with the conversation because after we leave this planet, that little flame ignites, that little flame lives on, Burke, and it goes wherever it goes in the spirit world, but it unites with the big bonfire. We reunite. We're all grapes on the same vine. You know, and we might be individual grapes walking around this earth and wandering around, but when we go to the big vine in the sky, you know, we're all members of the same family. And that's the bottom line. And, you know, the objective is to help. The objective is to make people smile. The objective is to accommodate. The objective is to use your gifts to advance other people. It's not about how much money you make. It's not about what's in it for me. I'll help you, but how much am I going to get paid? I'll do your charity event, but could you pay me this? No, it's not about that. The financial compensation comes as a result of you servicing other people, and you become a channel for good.
Yeah.
And when you become a channel for good, it's like a cycle. Everything in life is like a cycle. The tide, the moon, the sunset, the sunrise, the seasons, whatever. And it'll come back around to you. It always does. It's a law. I'm convinced. And
Yeah.
I'm here as proof positive.
And I hope, you know, that's why I started this thing, because I'm hoping there's people out there who musicians, you don't have to be a musician, but that's the theme. It might be in the same spot, or maybe they're in the hospital now and they don't see a future, or, you know, I'd be able to tell them my path. And it's, even though it's been a year and a half, it's all been uphill, you know, and there's things that I've done to try to make myself better, and maybe they're curious about it and I provide an email and maybe they want to share stories and et cetera.
Right.
But you're also lucky. I mean, you're very good at what you do now because you're very confident and relaxed speaker. And not everyone is a good speaker who are doing what you do right now. I wouldn't be able to do what you do because I'm too shy and I'm too choppy and my thoughts don't come smoothly enough. But you are going to be successful, and you are successful at what you're doing because you're so comfortable speaking in front of people. So that's another gift that you have. Well,
that's a gift that has been honed for a long time, doing drum clinics and teaching music business at the Collective in New York. There's always been groups, and I've never really had an issue with talking in front of groups at all, as you can tell.
Yeah. Can we take a sharp left turn for drumming?
Sure.
Drumming,
whatever you want to do.
Okay. Simmons drums. So in the 80s, they were very prominent. And I'm just curious, once you started touring with Cindy back in the day, and this will tie into the next question, but was that your choice? Or because I saw the part where she's picking out clothes for everyone. I'm sure she had a lot more vision for how her band was supposed to be. Or did you have samples in there? Or were they normal factory sounds from Simmons?
It was Simmons. Cindy wanted the Simmons, and I started out with the SDS-5, which was the first, and she wanted to emulate the sounds on the record. So basically, and they were just preset sounds in the Simmons 5. I used the Simmons 5 and was a hybrid kit. She didn't like a ride cymbal on the kit.
Yeah.
So she tells my drum tech, first rehearsal, lose his ride. I don't like his ride. And he looked at me and I said, go ahead, lose it. My name ain't on the marquee. Her name is on the marquee. So, but it was a hybrid kit with acoustic snare, acoustic bass drum, Simmons snare, 3 Simmons toms in front of me, and then a floor tom and an acoustic tom over to the right. Because I didn't have a ride cymbal per se, I had an auxiliary hi-hat on the right-hand side to go to another surface during a solo or a
Yeah.
bridge or whatever like that. Then I think further on in that tour, my good friend John DeChristopher, who went on to work with Zildjian for years and years, he was a rep for Simmons. He set me up with the prototype of the SDS-7. And so they were all preset sounds and like that. But I used it when people look at the picture of me, my drum set with Lauper, they saw a Simmons bass drum on my left. And they said, how did you play? Did you play alternate notes with the two bass drums, acoustic and electronic? And I said, no, because that material, Cyndi Lauper's material, did not call for, any double bass at all.
Yeah.
But I used it in choruses. The Simmons bass drum, I used to just double my acoustic bass drum part in a chorus with the Simmons bass drum to give it an extra oomph, to give it some digital presence in the PA as a dynamic thing to raise the bass drum intensity during the chorus. And then in the verse, I'd come back to the single kit again. So I used it to double.
When you needed to go to 11?
When I needed it to go to 11, the Simmons kit was that right there. Now, the challenge with the Simmons drums was that, Cyndi used to go and the band used to say, Sandy gets paid for the sound check. He does the gig for free. Because I used to go out there and my drum sound check with Lauper at the front of house would be like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just the drums. And I would have to hit each Simmons pad. And at the end of the sound check, she would say, we would be, let's say, in a theater. A nice, cushy performing arts center, theater. Sandy, don't change the sounds. I love them. Don't be touching that brain. Okay, Cyndi, no problem. So the next night, we're in a cavernous civic center or a gymnasium.
Yeah.
So obviously, I don't have to tell you, the sounds are going to change. So she would accuse me. Oh, you touched them. You made the sound. Yeah. So I would ask my front of house sound guy, on the side. I say, please explain to her how a room could change the sounds of the drums, whatever. But
I'd touch anything, I promise.
Yeah, right.
She probably made you tape all the knobs down in the brain or something. Just prove it.
No, we would have to. No, now the second night in the Civic Center, it would be different than the Performing Arts Center the night before. So there's the 40-minute sound check. I would have to readjust everything to that room and on and on and on. So that was the challenge. But after a while, we got into a nice thing. And Cyndi had her finger on every single aspect of that production, from the angle of the risers, where the risers were. The two ramps had to be two different, asymmetrical. She was very not into a symmetrical standard stage setup with the drums in the middle and the back. No, she wanted the drums stage left. The keyboard riser was stage right on a different angle, different height, and she had the whole center of the stage to herself, basically.
A lot of running room.
Climbing PA stacks. And I would have to double her vocal at the end of Money Changes Everything. I would have to listen really well. But she was awesome. We're still in touch with each other to this day via, social media and email or whatever. But I just love that woman, and I predict that there's a Hall of Fame slot for her eventually.
Oh, absolutely. You kidding me?
Yeah.
So speaking of Money Changes Everything, everyone, when you're growing up and you start to fall in love with rock and roll and you start to go to your first shows, there's always a hometown venue, your big venue where you go see the bands passing through. And I think that's where that live video was shot back in the heyday of MTV. It was Irvine Meadows, and that was, I'm pretty sure, and that was my hometown venue. That was probably 10 minutes away. And that's where I went and see all the bands passing through. Irvine Meadows Amphitheater down in Orange County, California.
Are you talking about the Money Changes Everything video that was on MTV?
The live.
Okay, that was actually shot in an indoor venue called it was the Summit in Houston, Texas, which and it turned into the Compaq Center where the Houston Rockets play basketball, and now it's where Osteen, what's his name? The evangelical Osteen is his last name.
Yeah.
That's his church. It's called Lakeland or Lakewood.
Oh,
the Summit. So, but that was the venue. It was the Summit in Houston, and that was the first. That video was the first video to use. We used NFL films to film the video, and that was the first rock video that used the cable cam. That's how, the cable remote cable cam. That's how they shot all the garbage can shots and all of that. So,
I guess I read it was. I think it was in the liner notes. There was some other live version of that was at Irvine Meadows, but the video was in Houston.
Yeah, we did play. We played all the sheds that summer. Irvine Meadows was one of my favorite gigs. I mean, that's one of my favorite kinds of venues to play is the Shed. They're
right
awesome.
Behind Irvine Meadows, there used to be in a zoo called Lion Country Safari, and so our neighborhood, in between the neighborhood I grew up, was Lion Country Safari and then the venue. So we would always run through the neighborhood. We'd have to sneak through the zoo at night and this is dangerous. There's these animals, and then hop that fence, and you could hop the back fence of Irvine Meadows to get in there.
Oh, awesome.
It was always a dangerous, cool thing to do as a kid when you're going on.
Right.
Let's go into the zoo and get to the concert.
That's great. Madison Square Garden was my backyard venue.
Man. American Music Awards was a gigantic show in rock history. Like, so much went down that night. Where you guys? Well, my question was, your performance on that sounded like a live band, yet it was only her on stage. When You Were Mine.
Yeah.
So were you guys behind the curtain, or how did that work?
When You Were Mine. The American Music Awards was she sang live vocals to track.
Okay.
And I remember we did, I don't remember When You Were Mine, to be honest with you, but I do remember Time After Time.
Mm-hmm.
And live, when I played Time After Time, I played it on the hi-hat side stick. There's no fills in the song. It's just hi-hat, side stick, and bass drum. And we're sound checking Time After Time. Not sound checking, but we're doing the camera block thing for American Music Awards. And the producer goes, drummer, what's your name? Sandy. Hey, Sandy, there's a shaker on the record. Would you mind playing a shaker in your right hand instead of, because we want to be authentic. We want the video to match what the people are hearing. I said, no problem. So I played a shaker. So that's my memory of American Music Awards. That year, she won the Best New Artist. If this was American Music Awards 1984, she won the Best New Artist. And I think she had Hulk Hogan as her bodyguard.
That's right. And then immediately after, they recorded We Are the World at some studio in town.
Right. I wasn't part of that. The band wasn't part of that.
It was just a big night overall. But
it was awesome.
That performance definitely made an impact on me for sure. You said in another video, you said that there was a punchline at the end of your playing with Cindy. I was just curious what that was, or if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. But did you get hired by someone else, and that's you had to leave, or was there a contract and your time was over, or how did that work?
I'm not too sure what you mean. What were the circumstances upon me leaving Lauper?
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Well, it was one of the most disappointing times. At the end of that tour, it started with her and her manager, Dave Wolf. They had a romantic relationship. They lived with each other. Okay, they were live-in boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay, so Dave found the band. Dave Wolf, the guy in the doorway, found the band. And during the end of that tour, when now she's 5 times platinum. It's towards the end of that Girls With One Fun tour. She had a meeting in her suite, and she said, "I love you guys. I want to join. I want you guys to all play on the next record. I want you guys to feel free to submit material. I'm going to have a separate merch deal for you guys. I'm going to give each of you guys a point on the record." And so a bunch of other stuff. Contact your lawyer, have him call my lawyer, set up the points thing or whatever. So we went down to the bar after that, the band did, and we started this gig as sidemen, and now we're going to be part, and we're going to share in the profits of a follow-up to a 5 million seller, plus have our own merchandise deal, plus a recording, plus the live. We were going to make a lot of money in 1985, 86, like that. Well, it turns out I ended up, after that tour was over, there wasn't any retainer going on, but I was writing songs and getting ready to contribute lyrics and whatever. And I took an offer to do this band called Kraft. I did their record, a German band, and we ended up touring with Queen in the summer of 1986. So I did that. I was in Europe at the time. I get a phone call from my road manager, Robin Irvine, and he goes, "Are you sitting down?" I go, "Well, I'm laying down. It's 8 o'clock here in Germany." He goes, "Well, Cindy fired the whole band." I go, "What?" She said she fired the whole band. Her and David broke up, and they had a big disagreement about what direction to go in for the second record. There was, I don't want to go into speculation about their personal life or whatever, but bottom line is anything that had to do with Dave in regard to her professional career was gone. So she hired a new manager. The band, she cleaned house, in other words. She hired a brand new band. She so there was so that was a very, very disappointing, because I went throughout that whole tour up to that point of Europe thinking, hey man, my future is very bright. I mean, I started as a sideman. Now I'm going to be a band member, and bang, my ship came in. We all thought that. So it was kind of a, disappointing thing, but you have to brush yourself off. I'm still healthy. I'm still playing, and move on. You
got the rug pulled out.
The rug got pulled out, but then the Monkees happened. Then that gig with the Tokens happened, and so one door closes, another one opens. And the bottom line is, Cindy and I are still very, very close. She's a big fan of Davy Jones, as a matter of fact, and so I had her. It was we ran into each other in Texas at a fair. Cindy was playing the fair the next night. I played the fair the night before with Davey. We ran into each other in the hotel. We stayed at the same hotel. And long story short, Cindy came to my gig with Davey Jones the night before her gig, and I had her come out and sing "Daydream Believer" with Davey.
Oh wow!
The audience went crazy. But yeah, so
it's what you talk about, holding on to resentments, right?
You can't hold on to resentment. You either just pretend they moved out of Mongolia with no cell service, or you have to reconciliate. You can't carry that crap around with you, because the person that you want to reconcile with or don't want to reconcile with, whatever the situation may be, doesn't give a crap about you. So why are you spending that energy and carrying that cinder block around on your shoulder all the time? Just forget it.
The path of a successful musician is never straight. It's never, very rarely is it this consistently. It's very jagged. And there's quite a few lows. There was a guy who I sold my soul to the devil in the early 2000s, and he ended up owning my image. And later down the line, once we were trusted each other and we were friends or whatever, he ended up erasing me out of Rolling Stone magazine. He ended up erasing me out of every video I was in. And he did this to a few people in the Northwest, and he had a legacy of doing this. I cut a deal later on where I was going to produce one of these new acts he found, as long as I could write myself out of his deal. So that happened. I was free of it, and then he ended up killing himself like 3 months later.
Wow.
The guilt just got to him too much.
Right.
But he was part of a big corporate family, and he wasn't a musical guy. He just wanted to invest in talent,
right,
and try to find the quick way around the industry. So those were some more lows there. But I've had the rug pulled out for me a couple times where I thought everything was fine anyway.
Right.
But then there's a victory that happens, shortly after.
It's like I mentioned before, there are seasons. There are seasons in life. There are seasons that we're in summertime now, but so it's like the metaphor is like you sow your seeds, you water the seeds, but then there's weeds that grow with your plant. So you got to go and pick out the weeds. Then winter comes. So now there's no harvest at all. But the springtime comes and there's weeds again. You got to go pick your weeds. But then there's the harvest time. So you have to live through the downside or the downtimes to appreciate and revel in the upside. Because as you said, it is a really big roller coaster. And as well as anybody, you see somebody on stage at the Kingdom or wherever, and what a life they must live. Mm-hmm. But then the tour is over, and the next morning they're going, the calendar's empty, crickets. What are we going to do now? You know what I mean? So it's back. Now you're back at the bottom. Now you got to keep on keeping on.
Like, who wants to go to the movies and see a story about a perfect family where nothing wrong ever happens? That's not going to be very exciting.
Right. Right.
You played with Joan Jett for quite a while, even up until when did you stop?
No, I played with her at the end of I joined her band at the end of '88 up until sometime mid '90.
Okay, 88 to 90. I was trying to
about a year and a half or something. About a year and a little over a year and a half.
Okay. And you guys are still good.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
What a great band it was.
Yeah, still doing it. She's
still doing it. They were getting ready to go out with Motley Crue and Def Leppard this summer.
Wow.
Which got postponed. But that's someone that deserves like a documentary if she doesn't have one already, because an old girl band in the hair band 70s, 80s, 70s in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Where everybody wants to get into a female's pants, and and an all girl band in that era was like a novelty act. So she went from that and all the shit that she was told, how many times she told that it would never happen, or bring your demo up to the office but wear your spiked heels or whatever. That kind of motivation was, but she went to the Hall of Fame. So there is an inspiration not only for all women, women players, but women in general, and people. It's a great inspirational story.
That'd be an amazing movie. Yeah,
it will, and there probably will be. If I know Kenny Laguna, her manager, there'll be a movie eventually.
Would you mind just briefly going through the Beats method, if you will? You could just do a few seconds of going through the letters and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The it's an acronym, and it stands for belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service. But it all comes down to, if I had my PowerPoint slide here, you'll see the A at the top, and the B, the E, the A, the T, and the S. It all starts with your attitude. Okay, you have to believe in what you do. You have to, what you want to do, your goals and your aspirations. You have to really believe in your heart that you not only want them, but you deserve them. And you have to feel that you have to picture yourself doing what you want to do. So, and feel good about it. You have to internalize what your goals are, and you have to have a tremendous amount of faith in the yet unknown. And the way I look at the future, Burke, is I look at it like I used to look at my Christmas tree when I was like 4 and 5 years old. I used to peek around the corner and see at 5 a.m, Christmas morning, when everybody's asleep, I used to see all the boxes and all the wrapped presents. And I'm going, man, that's going to be awesome. I don't know what's in those boxes yet, but I know it's going to be good. So that's the way I always looked at the future. I never was a prophet of doom about the future. So you got to have faith, first of all. It's your mental perception of things. Problems happen to everybody, but problems are a way for you and for us to learn about what not to do. And problems are also placed in front of us by the universe to see how bad we want what we're going after. Mm-hmm. Okay, so obstacles come. Are you going to let the obstacles defeat you? You didn't. I didn't. But I overcome the obstacle in some way, shape, or form. Over, above it, underneath it, you go around it or whatever. But you come out on the other side successful, and that's what gives you the mental fortitude to defeat the next problem. Because you look back and you go, hey, man, I was cool. I overcame that. I mean, all right, so there's the belief. There's enthusiasm. Of course, you have to be happy, like I was looking at those Christmas presents, and picture myself in Ringo's seat with the three guys and the screaming girls. That passion and enthusiasm is what drives you. Yeah. That's the engine towards your goal. The attitude, that's the overall concept. The tenacity it goes without saying. Tenacity, you have to be tenacious in your effort, even in light of the obstacles, even in light of the people that tell you, no, you can't do it. The people that told Joan, oh, no, you'll never do anything. You're a novelty act. What are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. You have to have a tenacious, thick skin in this, especially in the music business, or it has to do with any business. You're going to come face to face with obstacles. You're going to come face to face with naysayers. You're going to come face to face with people saying that you can't do it. You never can do it. But that's BS. And of course, the last one, and it's very, very important, it has to do with your overall sense of your perception and your attitude, is your sense of service to others. Mm-hmm. It's called altruism. And you have to think outside yourself. It's not only about what benefits you. What benefits you will come to you if you benefit other people. And do, say, act, whether it's people reaching out to you for some help, or you need to, use we all have to have a brain trust. And I'm sure, the drummer from Heart that you reached out to, that invited you to that jam session that you ended up getting gigs for, you shouldn't have any reservation reaching out to people that have done what you want to do successfully and picking their brain. And when you do that or ask for a favor or whatever, always show your appreciation. Always show your appreciation, and that's what will encourage that person to help you in the future. So it's a service to other people. The guy in the doorway, the guy with the oldies gig, etc. And Sandy, how did you get into speaking when you're playing a rock and roll drummer for all these artists? Now you're speaking to corporate as well as playing. How did you do it? Well, you know what? It's a spirit of service. I'm sure you've done this, Burke. After the encore, you throw drumsticks. I walked at the lip of the stage, and I'm tossing drumsticks out. Well, when I was single, I looked for the attractive blonde in the first row. But now, since I'm married 35 years, I look for children, handicapped people, elderly, grandpa, grandma that brought their grandson or granddaughter. And one night in San Diego, when I was with Travers, in my second incarnation with Travers, 2012, 2013, I threw a drumstick to a handicapped person in a wheelchair, a woman. The next day, the husband Facebooks me, researches me how to get in touch with me. He Facebooks me and says, you have no idea what you did to my wife. You made her cry on the way home, happy tears, because you actually paid attention to her. You made sure that she got the drumstick and not the guy next to her, and whatever. He goes, I want to thank you in person. What are you doing such and such a date? I'm coming into Nashville to speak at Bridgestone Arena. I said, sure, I'll come. Let's have a coffee. Okay, so we'll have a coffee. When he came into Nashville, we had the coffee, and he asked me how I got certain gigs. So I told him the Dave in the Doorway story and how I got Cyndi Lauper's gig and what that led to. He told that story during his presentation. He introduced me, and he said, Sandy, is it okay if I tell that Cyndi Lauper story? I said, sure. So he told the story. It got good reaction. And he made a metaphor from the story about how that story and the lessons learned apply to that corporate audience that he was speaking to. So after that, he says, I'm speaking at FedEx at an all-day training session. Why don't you come and tell the Cyndi Lauper story yourself to future leaders of FedEx in Memphis, Tennessee? Okay, so I went, sat in the back of the room during his presentation. I noticed the meeting planner at FedEx was plugging in her phone during a break to get some overhead music. So I called up time after time the song in my phone, and just held it there. And then I waited. I was introduced. I told the guy in the doorway story without mentioning Cindy's name. I said, as a result of me treating this guy like a human being and not as a fan and not as somebody less than me, it led to my involvement with this song. And in turn, I met my wife, blah, 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 blah. I plugged in the song, time after time, started playing. It got a round of applause. So leaving leaving that venue, he said, Sandy, you got a speaking career, and I'll help you get it off the ground. But you have a very powerful story, and that's not the only one. And it's totally adaptable to the corporate environment. So there you go. That's how my speaking. I'm sure you think of this, Burke, every once in a while, like when your playing days are, you're always going to be playing because you're a drummer, and that's where you get your motivation from, and that's where you feel your spiritual energy behind the drums, and so do I. So I'll always be playing. But I always thought, gee, when I'm 75, 80, who's going to want me to go on the road? You know what I mean? What am I going to do when I retire from the road? Not from playing, but from the road. And there's what happened.
Your new calling.
That's what it is. It found me, basically. I didn't research speaking.
Yeah.
So
it's a perfect fit.
Yep. Again, not to talk your ear off, Burke, but how I moved to Nashville is basically doing a favor for a friend. A mutual friend, Sammy Merendino, who played drums with Cindy after me, and was involved in her Broadway show,
Kinky Boots. Yeah.
Kinky Boots. Yeah. He called me one night when I was living in Staten Island and said, 2013, and said, hey, this guy is a big fan of yours. He's coming. His band is playing at Madison Square Garden this weekend. He's in town early. He wants to meet you. Why don't you come to the city? I go, who is it? He goes, this guy named Rich Redmond. I go, I never heard of Rich Redmond. Who does he play with? He plays with Jason Aldean. I said, who's that? I don't know who that is. I'm a rock and roller. I don't listen to country music. My wife goes, he's a big country star. Jason Aldean is a... So bottom line is, I didn't feel like going to the city to meet this fan, this drummer. And I didn't even know who Jason Aldean is. Sammy goes, come on, Sandy, do me a big favor. Come to the city. So I got dressed, showered, paid the $18 toll to go over the Verrazano Bridge, went to the city, met Rich, nice guy, had a couple of beers. Bottom line, he said, I want you to come to the show at the Garden. We sold it out in 8 minutes. I go, wait a minute, Jason Aldean sold out Madison Square Garden in 8 minutes? What are you kidding? He goes, yep. And Nashville ain't about pedal steels and fiddles anymore. It's rock and roll, blah, blah, blah. I went. And there's Jason Aldean, just like I pictured him, standing there like a statue with his cat down over his eyes, standing like a still life statue. But his band was rocking.
Yeah.
Rich was rocking. Rich apparently, he told me he's a big fan of mine. He used to watch MTV in his pajamas in the 80s. Money changes everything at the garbage can, blah, blah, blah. So he goes, Sandy, at the end of the conversation, after I saw the show, at the night that I met him, he goes, saying, Sandy, I got a house in Nashville. If you ever want to come down and check it out, feel free. I got a guest bedroom. So I ended up doing that after I saw the band live, and the band was kicking butt with Marshalls and big stacks, pyro, whatever. I said, you know what? Things were kind of going a little sour with Pat Travers at the time. So I said, you know what? Let me go check it out. And my wife always encouraged me to check Nashville out. She's from Charlotte, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So she's a big country fan. So I spent about 5 days at Rich Redmond's house in Nashville, and that's how I decided to move to Nashville. Oh. So it was like as a result of meeting Rich Redmond and coming, and one thing led to the dominoes started falling. My daughter wanted to go to Belmont University here in Nashville. My wife wanted to be a little closer to her mother, who lives in Charlotte. And not to mention the real estate disparity between New York and Nashville at the time was great. I was able to get a bigger house for less money, blah, blah, blah. So financially it worked out. My wife is a lot happier now being down south. She was living up in New York with me for 30 years or something. So I thought I'd give a little bit back. So, but as the bottom line is that I did a favor for Sammy. and went and met a friend of his who happened to be a fan of mine, and that led to my move to Nashville. So that's another example of reaching out and doing something for somebody could maybe 9 out of 10 times won't lead to nothing, but it could lead to something that could very well change your life for the better. And you had no idea. You had no idea.
I have quite a few friends in Nashville now, even from coming out from California where I grew up. Do you know anyone in the Tanya Tucker band? She's based there. I just interviewed Mike, the drummer who used to be in Goo Goo Dolls, and now he's in Tanya's band. And he lives there in Nashville.
Okay, I met Tanya once, but I'm not familiar with the band. I may have.
Yeah. It was interesting that the first time I went to Nashville was last August. I'm a Mapex guy, and there was a Mapex artist summit in Nashville, and so I got to meet all the Mapex drummers. But just spending 2 days around Broadway, I was blown away. Like, wow, is this what it's like all the time?
Right.
Just musicians dragging gear across the streets left and right, and it's like spring break or Vegas or something. Just everything's always buzzing, and there's music coming out of every building.
Yep.
Like, that was pretty cool.
Yep.
Going all the way back to the theme of this whole channel, this is the last thing for you, and thank you for spending so much time with me.
Yep.
During all your years of playing, and you're an energetic drummer, you know, you're a hard hitter. Well, you're very dynamic, but when like you said, playing with Cindy and you're doing those accents with her vocal pattern and stuff, did you ever come across any injuries or any physical maintenance that you had to keep up with just so you'd stay strong through a tour? Was there anything that held you back at all?
No. You know, even during my times when I was playing Simmons drums, I would get that question in clinics all the time. You ever had a problem with the wrist or the tennis elbow or whatever? I've never had any issue. And me and Max Weinberg were talking about it because he did have a lot of issues with his wrist and carpal tunnel and all of that. And it was because he told me when he had it examined by a doctor and the doctor watched videos of him playing, it was because when he hit his rim shot, you know, 2.5 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour Springsteen shows, he's constantly on 10, and he never released the stick. With me, like, in other words, that pressure of the rim shot was going constantly. How many times a song, how many times a show is that? All right. So I noticed, I did some self-examination. When I snap the rim shot, it's I let go of the stick for a split second upon impact. And that sort of dissipates the energy from the impact. It doesn't go into my arm. That's just a very amateur estimate of why I haven't had any issue. I really don't know, but I don't ever have any physical issues regarding drumming or playing. None at all. None at all.
Usually just with repetition through the years, it's through the wrist, there's blockage, or up through the forearm, and you got to get, you know, deep tissue worked on, get that circulation going on. And the limited mobility, like doing big circles with the arms, that gets closed down too. That's just a common theme from the drummers that I've been talking to, the problems they've had. But
I do. Just let me interrupt, but I do like prep before I go on and do. You know, I stretch my wrist both ways. There's a bunch of different stretches. I stretch this right here.
Yep.
Like, I pay special attention because that's where if we're going to cramp, we're going to cramp right here. So I drink plenty of water during the day. I make sure I stretch, especially my little thumb muscles right here. Each finger gets stretched, the wrist, the arms. I do those revolutions with the 10, 12 forward, 10, 12 back on each side. And I work out at the gym. You know, I do all of that. In my regular life, you know, I belong to Planet Fitness, and because I'm over the age of 65, I'm on Social Security, so I get a free membership, whatever.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you again so much. This was enlightening, and again, this was a super big treat for me. Like I said, the parallel in the beginning, it blows me away to spend some time with you. But I do want to drive people to your site, which is sandygennaro.com.
Yes, sandygennaro.com, Gennaro.
Okay. And then also, if you wanted to be inspired further and hear stories, or if you need to pick me up or hear a little bit more about his experience in the music industry or his speaking, they should go to Meat Hook. Are you still involved with Meat Hook?
Yes, I am. They go to Meathook or, and to get some in-depth situation or information about my speaking career. If you go on my website and hit the media center, you'll see a bunch of videos of the speaking. You'll see some playing videos, and then they're all over YouTube. I have a YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Hey, I'm going to stop the recording, but I have one other question to ask you after we do that. But I just wanted to thank you for spending the time. And I'll let you know when this is edited, and I'll send you a link. And
do that. Hey, Burke, thank you very much for your time. And congratulations again on your fortitude and making it back. You're 75% back yet, but the other 25 is coming. Just keep
That's what going. I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
It will come. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and it's getting brighter and brighter by the day.
Good. I need to talk to you every day then.
You're welcome to do that.
All right. I'll see you later.